Hey guys, welcome to my first drive video on Porsche's brand new Cayenne S E-Hybrid and their Cayenne Turbo E-Hybrid. I'm out here in glorious and sunny Spain, and today is going to be a road test and some circuit work at the end of it. It's hard to believe that the Cayenne has been around for 20 years now, and in fact earlier this year Porsche facelifted the third generation. This white one behind me is the Cayenne S E-Hybrid, and it's available both in your typical SUV shape, like this particular press car, and in their coupe. This model has a 3-litre V6 turbocharged engine, but mated to that is an electrical motor, and we'll talk more about how that works in a minute. But combined, the electrical motor and the 3-litre combustion engine produce 519 horsepower. They also combine a maximum torque figure of 750 Newton meters. That gives this 2.5-ton SUV a claimed 0 to 62 time of just 4.7 seconds. And the Turbo E-Hybrid version has a 4-litre V8 twin turbo underneath its bonnet, and that's mated to the same electrical hybrid system. And combined, that model produces a maximum output of 739 horsepower. If you think that's crazy, it produces 950 Newton meters of torque, which is just insanity. It has a claimed 0 to 62 figure of just 3.7 seconds. And once again, the Turbo E-Hybrid is available in traditional SUV shape or in the coupe. And if the regular Turbo E-Hybrid wasn't enough, there is a GT package that you can add to that car. Unfortunately, the brilliant Turbo GT has been discontinued for many markets, including the UK, due to emissions. But it's not the end of the world, because that GT package kind of transforms your Turbo E-Hybrid into a Turbo GT. You don't get any more power or torque, but I think 739 horsepower and 950 Newton meters of torque is enough. But what you do get is a weight saving of, wait for it, 100 kilos. That's exactly what I weigh. That's a massive amount of weight saved. And they played around a lot with the chassis. They've sharpened up everything. It's 10 millimeters lower than the standard turbo. So it should be the more dynamic version of the new E-Hybrid lineup. So I'm looking forward especially to trying that car out on the circuit. And thanks to the 100 kilo weight reduction, the claimed 0 to 62 figure has dropped 1/10 of a second to just 3.6 seconds. In a regular non-hybrid Cayenne, you would have the combustion engine in the front, nothing new there, and a gearbox here. In the E-Hybrid version, well, firstly, starting at the back, you've got the battery which sits underneath the boot floor. It's been enlarged to 25.9 kilowatt hours, and that gives these new E-Hybrids a claimed range of between, let's say, 50 and 55 miles. And in this morning's drive, I've found that to be about accurate. It will now also charge at 11 kilowatts, which is an improvement over the pre-facelift. In terms of where the electrical motor sits, well, we still have the combustion engine in the same place underneath the bonnet at the front, and we still have the gearbox roughly in the same place. But in between those two, we have the electrical motor. So combustion engine, electric motor, gearbox. And that electric motor on its own produces 130 kilowatts, or in old-fashioned money, 174 horsepower. But more importantly, 460 Newton meters of torque. That's a 30 kilowatt and 50 Newton meter increase over the pre-facelift. Aside from the faster 11 kilowatt charging that we talked about, in terms of the car's system, so when you're on the move, the recuperation, well, Porsche have managed to improve it on this very latest E-Hybrid version. So when you're off the throttle or you're going down a hill and you're recuperating, it should, in theory, charge up a bit quicker. Jumping in here and out of that beautiful heat, well, this is a really nice interior. I haven't experienced the facelifted third generation Cayenne until now, and Yeah, I mean, the fit and finish, it's just beautiful in here. And they've really simplified everything in here, because I remember Cayennes of old, especially the first and second generation, and this transmission tunnel was just full of buttons. I mean, it was like being in a cockpit of a plane. I believe this is a 12.6-inch display. You can also get, for the first time, a passenger display, which I don't really understand myself, because the central display kind of works for both of you. In fact, it is actually a bit closer to the passenger seat, or at least in a left-hand drive car. I'm not sure how that will work out in a right-hand drive car. But what I do like in particular is the fact that down here is a climate control pad. Everything on here are toggle switches, and there are a few buttons, but it's really easy to access, and it's completely separated from the main infotainment screen. I really, really like that. You control your temperatures, you've got your seat heating. In fact, in this car, seat ventilation. Oh, yes. We've got the new style dashboard in front of us. I'm going to call it the curved display, but obviously it's nothing like BMW's curved display. It's very similar to the one that's in the current 992 911, which I absolutely love. Seats are really comfortable. They are in a purple tone of leather. I'm not sure what the actual descriptive name is, but they kind of work. They might not work on camera and pictures, but they are nice, and they work very well with the white exterior. I think it's Carrera white exterior, but I'm not going to get into too many details of what's in here option-wise, because it's a German spec press car. It's got a lot. I know this Alcantara headlining is not standard in the Cayenne S. I'm not sure about the head-up display. This has also got a Burmeister sound system. I know that that's definitely not standard. It's got very fancy trim, so I'm not going to get into that. And as we all know, you can spend months on the Porsche configurator, because unlike many other manufacturers, you can spec so much, which is a great thing. It's a headache, but it's a great thing if you're actually ordering a car, because every Porsche, whether it's a Cayenne, a 911, Cayman, whatever, they all tend to be very personal, and there's very few out there that are exactly the same spec as a result. Other little details, down here we have a wireless charging pad, and that is continually air conditioned, so it's really warm outside. Even if I had the aircon off in the car right now, that little cubby hole would be cool. Benefits of that is keeping your phone cool. It charges faster, the battery life's better, it conditions the phone better. There's plenty of room in the rear. Obviously on the outside two seats, the middle, it's always going to be a compromise in pretty much all cars, even cars as big as the Cayenne. And the boot is reasonably big. I'll put on the screen how big it is, because I haven't done my homework on that, but I can tell you that it's definitely smaller than a non-hybrid Cayenne, because the batteries are in the boot floor, and therefore the boot floor is slightly higher. As standard, this Cayenne S E-Hybrid comes with 20-inch wheels, comes with some fancy new matrix LED headlamps that have got 32,000 LEDs in them, and it comes with new LED rear lights. I think we should get this out on the road. As we pull away in e-power, so electrical energy only, I think I forgot to mention that the Cayenne S E-Hybrid starts at £87,000 in the UK. That makes it about £3,000 more than the regular Cayenne S. But, and there is a big but, the regular Cayenne S now comes with a 4-litre V8 twin turbo. So if you buy the Cayenne S in non-hybrid, you get a V8. If you buy it with the hybrid like this one, you get the V6. So bear that in mind, because I think even without driving that car, in my opinion, at least on paper, the regular Cayenne S non-hybrid is the best value on sale today. 84 grand, and you get a 4-litre V8 twin turbo producing around 500 horsepower. I mean, what's not to love? And remember also that that Cayenne S weighs about 250 kilos less than this. So in reality, it's probably going to feel a bit punchier, although once again on paper, this apparently does the 0 to 62 sprint about 0.2 of a second quicker. Well, we've been climbing up that mountain in electric only, and it has no issues with that. 174-ish horsepower, but more importantly, 460 Newton meters of torque. So if you just want to use your Cayenne E-Hybrid in electric, providing your journey's 50 miles or less, you can, and you'll be able to keep up with the flow of traffic, no problem whatsoever. In fact, as I've just demonstrated, you can even go for a cruise on a mountain road and it never feels like it's lacking in power or, more importantly, torque, because torque is what you need in a big heavy car. And once again, this is 2.5 tons, so it's great, it's lovely. If I owned one of these, I would be tempted to put it into electric every time I entered a town, city, village, just because it's a nice thing to do. But let's see what happens when you bring it out. So if we're using the drive mode down here, well, we've got off-road, e-power, hybrid, and then we've got sport and sport plus. Now, if we hold down this new, I say new, it's kind of come out of the 992, but obviously in the 992 it's down there. In this Cayenne it's up here. So if we hold that down, that gives us manual, so we can use these beautiful paddles. Again, they've come straight out the 992. So no complaints there whatsoever. And that has now fired up the 3-litre V6 turbocharged engine. Sounds good. It's got a lovely V6 note. I don't know if it's completely organic in here, but even if it is synthesized, it sounds right. And it sounds good on the outside. And a cold start in these also sounds really good. If you start it up in Sport or Sport Plus, I think, because normally when you start these up, they start up in electric mode if you've got some charge in there, which makes sense. So you'll make your neighbours very happy. They might see this sort of extravagant Cayenne parked in your driveway and expect to be woken up every morning. But with the hybrids, you can pull away nice and silently first thing. This has Porsche's new adaptive air suspension as standard. In fact, the turbo also comes with it, and it does an incredible job, as you'd probably expect. The car stays completely level, completely supported through corners, no matter how hard you push it. In fact, the first sign you kind of know about when you're running out of traction and grip is a little bit of understeer on the front axle. And you have to be doing silly speeds for that to happen, because this has 285 section front tyres and, quite frankly, ridiculous 315 section rears. That's the same size rears that you get on a 911 Turbo S or that Sport Classic that I had recently. So you've got so much mechanical grip, and when it is supported, so you turn it in here, the whole car just stays completely flat. You can feel everything working though. And in fact, that's more relevant at slower speeds. The first time I picked this car up and I took it out here along the highway and you change direction, you can feel so many things going on beneath you in the chassis with the electronics and the dampers and all the suspension. It's quite incredible. And the only way I can describe it is if you imagine a friend or a partner who's standing up straight and you walk up to them, you say, I'm going to push you. So you go up to them and you start pushing them here in the shoulder and you tell them to hold their ground, don't move. What are they going to do in reaction to you pushing them? Well, they're going to counterbalance that by pushing towards the force, because that's what you do to keep your balance, right? And that's exactly what is going on beneath me here. The second I turn in, you can feel the car sort of push against that gravity or the force that's trying to push the car in the left direction. All the suspension and chassis down the left-hand side of the car is supporting. It's an incredible system, and it's definitely got much better with many manufacturers, but especially Porsche over the years, because I remember the first ones I tried in a Range Rover about 7 or 8 years ago, and it actually made you feel a bit sick. The calibration just wasn't right. But in this, I wouldn't say it feels natural. It doesn't feel, completely normal, but it definitely feels much better than previous systems. And like I said, it really does defy gravity. I'm not sitting here thinking I'm driving a 2.5 ton SUV. Before we jump into the turbo, let's just push on a little bit and talk about the engine handling dynamics of this, because after all, it has a Porsche badge on it. We've already talked about how well it sort of controls its weight and its mass. Does it feel like it's got more than 500 horsepower? No, it doesn't actually. It really doesn't. The V6 engine itself, so the combustion engine, the 3 litre, that produces about 350 horsepower, and combined with the electric motor, which I do have range of, it does give us 519 horsepower. But it's not slow, but it doesn't feel like more than 500 horsepower. There's a couple of reasons for that, but the main one being this is heavy. It's 2.65 tons with me and my luggage in it. It's not going to set your world on fire in terms of pace, but it's almost definitely quick enough for the majority of customers. Let's get back to base and find ourselves a turbo E-Hybrid, because this is impressive, but I have a feeling that that's going to be another level. Oh, this road, it's unreal. See you in a sec. Right, now we're in the turbo E-Hybrid, and this particular press car is an SUV and not the coupe, guys. Retail on this starts at £130,000, so that's a massive jump compared to the Cayenne S E-Hybrid that we just jumped out of. That's £43,000 more. And yes, you do get more standard equipment, so things like 21-inch turbo wheels, you get the Bose sound system, GT sports wheel, you get the Matrix LED headlights, adaptive 18-way sports seats, Alcantara headlining. It does feel a bit more premium in here, but it's hard to gauge that because obviously these are press cars and they are also cluttered with optional extras. Now, this is essentially the same engine that's in the current Cayenne S non-hybrid, and I figured out that although we know this car has a maximum combined ridiculous output of 739 horsepower, I think that the combustion engine alone is producing about 565 horsepower of that. And you notice it straight away. I mean, even without the hybrid edition and the hybrid help or the electric motor help, this engine is just so much punchier. It really is. It feels so strong. It feels so good. It sounds so good. And as a result, this turbo just feels like it's a far more premium product. You know, it really does. It sounds expensive. It's a really nice bit of kit to get in and drive off. And I think if you've got the money to justify having the V8, it's worth the extra 43 grand just for that alone. Do you need that extra power and torque? Does it feel noticeably quicker? Because remember, the S is 519 horsepower and this is 739, and they're roughly the same weight. This is a bit heavier because of that V8 lump, but it does feel massively faster when you really boot it. It's got so much propulsion, it's unreal. Right, let's push on a little bit and see what it's like in terms of handling. Does it feel different to the Cayenne S E-Hybrid? Yes, it does. It feels more organic. It feels less artificial. Oh, that sound is, it's really addictive. It's just nice hearing a proper V8. To me, that's what a Cayenne is. It's a V8, you know, the early first generation S and eventual GTS turbo. I remember seeing them 20 odd years ago and thinking, oh, that's cool, you know, like a brutish V8. And it's great to see that that continues. And obviously you don't need to buy an E-Hybrid for that to happen. You can have the current S, which my good friend and fellow YouTuber Petrol Ped actually drove up the Festival of Speed hill climb earlier this year, and he absolutely loved it. I haven't driven that car yet, and I'm sure it's incredible because it's essentially this with the hybrid system stripped out, so 250 kilos lighter. It's probably the car that I would have without even driving it, but you won't get the hybrid benefits. And I think that's what's so important with these e-hybrid cars and range, is they do tick a lot of boxes for a lot of people. And I think the fact that you've got that electric only range available is really handy. And if your commute every day is only 30, 40 miles each way, and you've got a bit of charging either side, then yeah, essentially it's going to be very cheap to run and very, well, reasonably green to run, depending on where the electricity is coming from. And with this one, well, you've just got that added firepower, and you've got some added driving dynamics. In fact, earlier on, I was lucky enough to take one of these out on track. So let's cut to that and just see what it's like when I'm really pushing it, because it's a public road. Okay, here we are out on track in the regular turbo e-hybrid. See what this thing's like. We're chasing a beautiful Turbo S 992. It's a fantastic circuit, really undulated. I'm sure it's going to look really flat on camera. Real test for a car, especially an SUV. You can ride all the curbs. It's unsurprisingly staying lovely and flat. It just feels wrong because I'm sitting so high. The punch out of that hairpin. All of that 700 and whatever horsepower. Oh, we're getting a bit of understeer. That's 200 k's, 210 on the brakes. This is only my second lap around here, by the way, so I really don't know it. But the car is just making light work of most of it. Brakes are holding out pretty well. I mean, tight sections like this, it's just not SUV territory, but it's pretty impressive. It's a late apex, I remember this bit. Oh, just about get there. This bit's fast. Getting a bit narrow then. Now we're on our cool down lap. I have to say, massively impressive. Circa 2.5 ton car. It shouldn't be doing lap times like that. It shouldn't be able to handle like this one's just done. If you're buying one of these as a road car, which I think 99% of people are, this is very, very capable. Wow, it's mighty impressive. Massively impressive car. The limiting factor, as far as I'm concerned, is just front end grip. Tyres getting too hot and just crying enough, which you can completely understand, you know. All of that weight, all of that power, all of those electronics, in the end, something has to cry enough, you know. Physics do come into play. You can't cheat them for too long, and yeah, after 2 or 3 laps, obviously you get temperature issues, but all the same, amazing. And how many people are going to take their Cayenne Turbo E-Hybrid out on track? I would have thought 0. So just in case you're thinking about it, it is reasonably capable, but there are limiting factors. I've decided to shoot a separate video on the Cayenne Turbo E-Hybrid with the GT package, because that is another level again in terms of performance, and I didn't want this video to be too long, so keep an eye out for that. In terms of my conclusion on the two cars that I've tested in this video, so the Cayenne S E-Hybrid and this Cayenne Turbo E-Hybrid, well, if you've got the money, this is definitely the better car. It makes you feel better, or at least it makes me feel better, because that V8, it also feels better to drive. It just, I don't know how to explain it, but everything just feels a little bit more together, a little bit more sorted, and everything seems to work together better. The hybrid system, although it works very well in the regular S, it seems to work much better when it's mated up to this 4-litre V8. It's all just so effortless, and I think that's because the 4-litre just has so much more available punch down low and up high, that it just integrates better with the hybrid system. And the fact that you've still got the benefit of the electric only range and all of that stuff, it's just brilliant. It is a package that really does everything. Saying that, the S, it is better value, isn't it? It's much better value. And although it's hardly cheap, but nothing is in 2023, the package that you get in the S is, yeah, quite impressive. You get a lot of car, you get a lot of standard equipment, you do get a lot of performance. It doesn't feel like it has over 500 horsepower most of the time, but then do most people need that? Probably not. It really comes down to what your budget is. If you can afford one of these and justify it, then go for it, because that third gear pull from 2000 RPM is just crazy, up a hill as well. I forgot to mention that. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful if you are looking at buying one of these fabulous Cayenne E-Hybrids. When I get back to the UK, and in fact when I'm back from Oz, I'm definitely going to book in a non-hybrid version of the new Cayenne, because it's a fantastic bit of kit, and I'd love to feel what the regular S is like, chucking 250 kilos out the door, see what it feels like on the road, because I mean this feels mighty, so that can surely only feel better. Thanks to Porsche for the invite. It's my first official Porsche invite, and I've really enjoyed the past couple of days, and hopefully my videos have done me some justice. Anyway, take it easy. I'll see you at another one very, very soon. Cheers.